Okay. I asked you earlier just about what some of the restrictions are, and I'd just like to, you mentioned just 2 or 3 things there. The basics card does not allow the purchase of pornography, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No. But the cashless debit card does?
Correct.
So what is the policy rationale for this?
Essentially, that's been a policy decision of government, informed by discussions that have been had with community representatives.
Given that the intervention came into the Northern Territory 12 years ago based on many things, including the use of pornography or access to it, do you see that there is a conflict with that policy?
I think since 2007, pornography has changed a lot in the sense that, as I understand it, there's a lot more accessibility to pornography without spending money than there perhaps was 12 years ago. So purchases of pornography are perhaps less of a relevant
So is
factor.
that based on evidence data?
No, that's based on my observation.
So based on your observation, there's
People don't pay. The trend data, as I understand it, is that people don't necessarily have to pay for pornography.
So I'm just trying to understand this policy because it is a critical one in terms of the Northern Territory. What evidence is there that the ban was ineffective then in the Northern Territory?
I think that we don't have any specific evidence that the ban was ineffective. It's just community views around access to pornography and the relevance of using a restricted card to prevent access to pornography have changed, and the government's taken on board those changes in community views and perspectives.
And has that come through with conversations with the people of the Northern Territory, given that the issue of pornography was such a major issue in 2007, hence the basics card and the intervention? Has that come through in discussions with?
I'll just ask Ms Blewett. She was involved in some discussions last week.
Yeah, in the discussions that I was involved in the Northern Territory last week, and I've also been up to Cairns to talk to people in relation to the Cape York sites. Pornography has not come up, Senator, at all. The tobacco is the issue that's come up.
It's not come up, but
No.
have you raised it?
No, we've been very upfront about what the cashless debit card can do.
You've asked about pornography as an issue, have you?
No, I haven't asked about it as an issue. What we've done is when we've talked about the fact that we'll be swapping one card for another and the difference between the 2 cards, we've had an information sheet that we've handed out, and the information sheet tells you information about how the basics card works and what will be different under the cashless debit card. And on that information sheet, it actually lists that on the basics card, pornography and tobacco were restricted items, and on the cashless debit card, they will no longer be restricted items.
Okay, so people are aware of that then?
Yes. And that's part of the flyer and information we've been handing out as well.
But we'll continue to explore. We're continuing to consult, and it's a useful point for us to highlight, Senator.
So what communities and representatives were consulted about this, Ms Blewett, last week in the Northern Territory?
I've got a list here somewhere. Look, last week I was in Darwin, Groote Island and Alice. Off the top of my head, we met with a range of, members from the Tiwi Lown Council. We've got a list of that we can actually table.
Schedule we can table for you.
That would be great.
Yeah,
If
so
we
we could
could
give you
table
that.
that,
Yeah,
that would be
it's
very
quite an
helpful.
extensive list, and we're continuing to actually engage with communities and representative groups. We've already started now, and we'll continue up until April when it's taken, and then through the actual rollout of it as well.
The consultations will continue in the Northern Territory up to April.
Yeah.
So I know, Ms Heffron-Webb, you said it was in your expertise that you sense that pornography was not being used as much. But what expert advice was sought on that decision?
None to my knowledge, thank you.
Okay. And were any communities consulted prior to last week? Oh,